here, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking Philly Sports with Matty B program here on the Edge of Philly Sports with your boy Matty B coming at you on this January 1st, 2024. I don't feel no different. Nah, it's great to be here on this New Year's Day, and I hope everybody has had a great holiday, and I hope everybody had a good holiday season, Christmas and Hanukkah, whatever it is you celebrate during this time. Obviously culminates today with, in my opinion, one of the most depressing days of the year as we all look forward to the new year and everything that we've had that we've accomplished in the last year. Now we got to do it all over again, or we got to up the ante, as so to speak, in 2024. But it's great to be here, and I love the challenge. So I accept you, 2024. Let's rock. But we are back live on Monday nights, which is great. We were doing the holiday shuffle through Christmas, trying to keep up with the Eagles implosion, as well as keeping up with the holidays. But we're back here on Monday nights, 8 o'clock. I have one of the unique moments here to be one of the first that you hear in the new year. I don't know how that's how you feel about that, but I dig that very much. Daniel Berry with my first comment of 2024. And it is standard yo. Yo, Daniel, what's going on? Happy New Year. Listen, a bunch to talk about. What's happening in football? Anybody help me out with that? But no, we're going to get into the Eagles and all that. Everybody seems to, this is what I've kind of seen over the last 24 hours or so since yesterday's game, if you will. Acceptance. Yes. Acceptance to the fact that the football team that resides in South Philadelphia stinks and that they've always stunk and that they were getting by with their good looks and their flashy clothes and their fancy hairdos over the last 11 weeks or the first 11 weeks of the season. But now that the humidity in the air has frizzed up their hair and that their clothes got some holes in it, it ain't seeming too good anymore. I'm pulling stuff out of my butt here now, trying to paint the metaphorical picture or the analytical picture or the, you know what I mean. The bottom line is that your football team is 11-5, and I can never remember, and I don't remember any time in the history of me being a Philadelphia sports fan where we were so negative about an 11-5 team. But, and this is what it is, and it's rightfully, deservedly so, because this team could not beat the Arizona Cardinals. Let that sink in, folks. So I had the privilege of doing the post-game show last night, and I mentioned that the Cardinals had absolutely nothing to gain by winning this football game. Nothing. They're chasing the Bears / the Panthers for that number 1 overall draft pick. Why would they want to win this game? Why would they go out there and win the game with a number 1 pick at stake for a team in the Cardinals that has holes up and down the roster? Why? And a lot of people say that the decision of John Gannon with about 5 minutes to go in the game to attempt an onside kick was an attempt to lose. But you know what? Nick Sirianni said, you know what, John, hold my beer because I'm going to one-up you. And they did. But just an amazing turn of events for this football team. 10-1 to start the season, and since then they've gone 1-4. They are in the playoffs. The NFC East is about a gone done reality. It's over. They're not going to really. I mean, they still have a chance. They still have a chance at that number 2. I think. Who cares? More than likely, they're going to be the number 5 seed. And does anybody really care at this point? Is anybody really feeling comfortable at this point? Does anybody really have faith? Because a team that lost in the Super Bowl, anything less than winning the Super Bowl is a failure anyway. But especially if you lose in the Super Bowl, you expect them to go back. But, we expected the Phillies to go out to the World Series this year, and that didn't happen either. But yet we defend some of the management and the coaching changes or the coaching decisions that the team made, and we bring back some of the old people that they failed with. And now it looks like the Eagles are going to fall short of that goal of winning a Super Bowl. And hell, they're not even going to get back. They're not even going to get through the second round of the playoffs. And again, that's all trajectory. I mean, we don't know that. So we're going to talk Eagles, right? We're going to just address that. We're going to address a lot of different other things because I believe obviously that this thing goes deeper than the team. I believe that there's problems in the front office. There have been problems in the front office all along, but people don't want to address those problems. But we're going to redress them here tonight as we get ready to fire up the old Howie hate machine because that's going to go off tonight. But I'm going to add in some Jeffrey Lurie hate too. Because I think that once again, our great owner or that great owner is nothing more than a very quiet Jerry Jones when it comes to the way he runs his football team. And unfortunately, he's been fooling a lot of people for a long time, and it might now be coming to start to unravel for Jeff Lurie a little bit. And we're going to address that too. The Flyers are out in Western Canada tomorrow night. They will wrap up against the Edmonton Oilers before returning back home to South Philadelphia. It started out as a really good trip. It's kind of hit a few bumps along the road. We'll get into some of the Flyers issues, and it's nothing new. It's nothing like news breaking. It's offensively driven, and they don't have enough of that, and what maybe they should be doing. And we're going to talk some USFL. That's right, the United States Football League, or what used to be the United States Football League. They made some major announcements over the past 72 hours or so. We'll get into some of that, and a few other things as we kind of get you set to start your 2024. I know most of you will go back to work tomorrow. Some of you might have already gone back to work, but again, depressing day. I've always hated this day. Yeah, ever since I was a kid. But let's get started like we do every week on the program, and that is your day in Philadelphia sports history. And guess what today's topic was going to be? Well, it's college football, of course, because it's January 1st. It's nothing like it used to be when it comes to bowl games on January 1st. It's kind of a watered down version of that now. Mainly the main event is going on right now with the BCS playoff game. But back when I was a kid, January 1st was like 98% of your bowl games. There was a few sprinkled around Christmas time, the Holiday Bowl and the Armed Forces Bowl, stuff like that. But about 98% of them happened on January 1st. But that's not the way it is anymore because of contracts and TV. They want to get all that. They want to spread it all out, whatever. But back in this date in Philadelphia sports history, on January 1st, 1935, and yes, I preference this again by saying I was not here firsthand. I was not reporting on this with my eyes. I was not in the stands for this event in 1935. No, I was not. But the Temple Football Owls, that's right, they made history today. They played in the inaugural where is it? Now Sugar Bowl. The Sugar Bowl. Temple, and I did not know this, that Temple played in the first ever Sugar Bowl in 1935. They were undefeated heading into that game, head coached by Pop Warner. I didn't know he was the head coach of the Temple Owls at one point, but he was, and he took the undefeated Owls to the very first ever Sugar Bowl. It was against Tulane. It was against Tulane, and the Owls ended up losing the game. They got shut out, or they lost 20-14. So, congratulations to the Temple Owls. That blew my mind when I read that today. That Temple was a member, played in the very first ever Sugar Bowl, and lost with their head coach Pop Warner. I mean, geez, didn't really know. Didn't know it went that deep, but that was on your day in Philadelphia sports history. Temple loses the first ever Sugar Bowl in 1935 to Tulane. And that segment was brought to you by Mr. Dave Cherry at 610-565-0300 for workman's compensation, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, and criminal law. Contact Dave Cherry at 610-565-0300. And let's get into it right now. This obviously we're going to cycle to the Eagles. Now, of course, you know how this works on this program. I don't get really into the X's and O's here tonight. I wait for Thursdays or Saturdays, with Mr. Kyle Quinn when we do our Birds Blast segment here, or standalone show. It'll be taped on Thursday and airs on Saturday. So that's when I'm really going to get breaking down X's and O's. But that's not what tonight's about. And it hasn't been about that for a few weeks now, because it's not about the X's and O's. It's about the other dysfunctionality that is this football team. It's about the team that apparently doesn't know its own identity in Week 17. a team that apparently can't communicate with each other on the field, even though it's week 17, and a team that lost to the Arizona Cardinals convincingly in week 17, and a team that for the first time in Philadelphia Eagle history has blown 3 double-digit leads in the same season and lost all 3 of those games. That's right. I did not know that till today either. The Eagles, with the game yesterday, because once upon a time, the Eagles led 21-6 in this game. But it was the 3rd time this season that the Birds have blown a double-digit lead and lost in the same season. The first time ever in franchise history. Even in some of the darkest days of Philadelphia Eagle football of the 70s and the 80s, it apparently never got that bad. But the Philadelphia Eagles have achieved a feat under their head coach, Nick Sirianni. So I guess you can put that up next to Nick Sirianni's taking the team to 3 straight years of playoff bursts. You can put also the fact that he's blown 3 double-digit leads and lost all 3 games at the same time. Whoa. Whoa. Wow. Sorry about that. He has blown 3 double-digit leads and lost all 3 of those games in the same season for the first time in Eagles history. And now I guess the question remains, or the question is this: why? What has happened? How does a team that started out the season 10-1 go 1-4 in their next 5 and then lose all the confidence, not only from the fan base, but apparently from each other? The players don't seem to have confidence in each other. Nick Sirianni has lost the locker room. Nick Sirianni is circling his own wagons right now because he doesn't know what to do. Why? You go back a month ago, right? They're 10-1. They're streaming towards the Super Bowl. There's issues with this team, but those of us that dared to say that there were issues with this team were shut down or were attempted to be shut down and called haters. When did speaking the truth become hate speech? When did speaking what was clearly in front of your eyes become hate speech? When? And here I am, or here we are, I should say, 5 weeks later, and it's all come true. Why? What has happened? And I guess more importantly is, why am I one of the only people who saw it? Why couldn't you see it? Why couldn't some of my colleagues here in the Edge of Philly Sports see it with their own eyes instead of trying to wish it away? You know, my fandom has never really come under attack. It hasn't really. I mean, I've been called a hot take guy, and I can accept all that. You know what? I can. But, you know, as things have unraveled now, and as things are sitting here in front of our face, and there's got to be nobody left out there that's actually thinking that this team can rally to a Super Bowl, right? I mean, we all on the same page? But do you know not one person on this network has told me, you know what, Matty B, you were right. You were right. You were really obnoxious about it, but you were right. Not one. You know what I get? I get crickets now. I get crickets. But yet when they were winning, I got the mud being slung at me all the day, all time. Every day I got the mud. But now that I've been proven to be correct, and now that I was right all along, I don't hear nothing from none of them. And you know what? It tells me a little bit about their character, because I sat there and took it because I had no choice to. But you know what? I'm not going to sling the mud back, because it was never, ever, ever about that. It was about trying to make people see that there was problems with this football team that needed to be addressed. Problems with the front office of this football team that did not crop up in 2023. They were here a while ago. Everybody forgets the Doug Peterson thing. Doug was fired because Doug didn't want to listen anymore. Doug wanted to do his own thing. Whether or not it was good or for bad, we'll never know, because he got fired before he could do it. They brought a yes man in, Nick Sirianni, to come in here because they knew they could control him. How much? And then remember all the reports of the meddling from Howie Roseman about how he influences the coaching decisions, how he creates the game day rosters. Right? We pushed all that underneath the rug because they won a few games and they made a Super Bowl run. But those problems are not new to this year. They've been here for years. but nobody wanted to talk about it. Did we want to fool ourselves that it didn't exist? And was I the only one who was okay with accepting that and wanting to liberate this football team from some dictators and frauds? You know, and I'm sorry that it all came true. I'm sorry that it didn't right itself. And I'm sorry for all the wasted time a lot of you have spent dealing with the Eagles, to include me. But maybe now finally, once it's out in the open, there can be some work done now to fix this. And the talk today seems to be centered around, once again, Nick Sirianni and the coaches of this football team, which I agree with. But when you bring up the Howie Roseman topic, when you talk about him, of holding accountability to him for this, there's a lot of side talking going on. Like, oh, yeah, well, he didn't address the linebackers. He doesn't like safeties. He doesn't like cornerbacks. All right, back to Sirianni. That's how it is. It's like they want to accept Howie, but they don't want to accept Howie as the problem. And you know why? And I can tell you why. I can tell you why they don't want to really accept Howie as the problem. They don't want to really accept Howie as a problem because they would come off as being the biggest hypocrites in the world. Remember back then, was it 2020? Everybody wanted Howie gone. I would say 18, 19, 20 was like the epochs of get rid of Howie Roseman. Remember those days? And then, they didn't fire him. And then Howie gets a couple good drafts here and there. They make the playoffs in 2021, and then they get to the Super Bowl last year. Everybody took it back. Oh, he's learned from his mistakes. He's doing great. And now here we are. And you know what? People are stuck into a corner right now because they can't criticize him, because they've been done fooled by the man. And going back on what they said would really make them look extremely flimsy. Howie got it, man. Howie did his job. He's fooled you. And now you're stuck with him. But I'm not, because I wasn't fooled. So the problem is, yes, it's coaching. Nick Sirianni was never going to be a coach, a good coach at this level, right? Does Nick Sirianni deserve to get fired? He absolutely does. Will he get fired? I don't know. I hope he does. But he needs to take the GM with him, because it doesn't matter if Sirianni gets fired or not. All it's going to be is another yes man that Howie can control and that Jeff Lurie can control coming in behind Nick Sirianni. And then we're right back in the same position. So, yes, you got to go ahead and get rid of Sirianni. You definitely do. He's lost the locker room. Whatever he's saying anymore is not working. But you got to get rid of Howie Roseman, too. You got to fire him. And you know what? Until that day happens, we will not be truly free from that cancer and that fraud of a GM. Until that day happens, we will still be under the tyrannical grip of a fraud. He needs to be fired along with Nick Sirianni. I don't understand why that's so hard for people to understand. Is it because you would seem stupid by saying, I wanted him fired, oh, I forgive him, now let's fire him again? Do you see what you've done? Do you see how you let him fool you? And now he's got you under his spell. Ugh. Ah, damn. The NFL Reality Check says, hey, what's going on? Or, hey, what's good? He is also going to tell me that he's going further. He thinks the real problem is our quarterback. Yeah, you know what? Why is that Hurts is always in the shotgun and never under center? Can Hurts even play under center? What we want to change, but these coaches handcuffed. Well, was it? We want to change, but these coaches handcuffed. I don't understand what that means. Why are the coaches handcuffed? They run the team, right? Are you telling me that Jalen Hurts is in the shotgun because he cannot play under center? Is that what you're trying to say? Or are you trying to say that Jalen Hurts is in the shotgun because the coaches are making him be in the shotgun? I mean, you can go back and forth, and I am not exonerating Jalen Hurts from any of this either. He's had a regression of a season, absolutely 100%. But you know what? I would love to see Jalen Hurts with a real head coach and a real offensive coordinator. I love to see it. You saw it when he had a real offensive coordinator last year, Shane Steichen, how he excelled. I would like to see that again. But listen, Jalen Hurts, he is not off the hook. by Hurts because he can only play shotgun-based offense. I mean, again, is that Hurts or is that coaching or is that what? I don't know. I mean, you might be right about that, but even if he can only play in the shotgun, that's fine. You can be creative in that position as well. So coaching is an issue with him. Coaching is an issue with this entire team. The head coaches, the coordinators, everything. But Howie Roseman does not deserve a pass in all this. And people they're placating, or they're placating themselves by saying in the same breath about blaming Sirianni, oh yeah, we blame Howie too, but they're not really blaming Howie. No, they're giving him a pass because they would feel stupid for going back on what they said about him. He's saying that the coaches were handcuffed because it seems Hurts can only play a shotgun-based offense. It's been that way in college too. Again, that might be you might be right, but I've seen Hurts under center. Steichen had him under center quite a bit last year. I'm not going to say that he can't play under center, but maybe he needs a different type of style of offense in order to play under center. And maybe we don't have the coaches that can unlock that. Or maybe he cannot. If he can only play in a shotgun, that's fine. He has the ability to be that, that RPO kind of guy. And if that's what your limitations are with him, that's not a bad thing to have. There's some good to that as well. But I don't think we can kind of say that to a fact until we see Hurts in a system with a coach that plays him both ways. I don't know. That's kind of how I look at it. But yesterday, 35-31 was maybe the worst loss of the season. Maybe one of the worst losses in Eagles' recent history to a team that just wanted it more, I guess, as I said, which was very hard for me to understand because they had absolutely nothing to gain with the win. It actually hurt them as they're trying to catch that number 1 overall pick. Some of the things that, of course, stood out in that game yesterday, and a major story is that sequence of events right after the onside kick where the Eagles, for about a span of about 2 minutes, ran 4 plays, burned a timeout, and could not capitalize on a short field. It ended up getting a field goal, which led to the go-ahead touchdown by the Arizona Cardinals, which eventually won the game. It was one of the more bizarre sequences of events that I've ever witnessed in watching a football game, especially with the Philadelphia Eagles. The lack of communication in that 2-minute span of time in a very crucial part of the game where John Gannon essentially handed you that game and you went out there and did absolutely nothing with that, tells you everything you need to know about what's going on with the coaches. There should not be communication problems like that at this stage of the season with the coaching staff and players confused about who's going on off the field. And then you have to burn a timeout to boot all that. It was just unpreparedness, sloppy, not bought in. I mean, it's really yesterday that sequence was all you needed to know about the status of your Philadelphia Eagles, away from all the fluff and circumstance of we're going to try harder, we're going to get it fixed, we're going to give 110%, blah, blah, blah. That little sequence there was all you needed to know about really what's going on with the Eagles. Hurts has played under center 3 times this year, excluding the tush push and in those plays. 2 interceptions and 1 incomplete last year. He had 5 times under center, excluding the tush push. So I don't know. Well, listen, that's a sample size, man. It's 8 times or 7 times, 8 times, whatever. I mean, is that hardly even a way to say? I mean, it doesn't look good for the under center stuff. Listen, as I said, you might be right, but I mean, there's workarounds that. If Jalen Hurts is more comfortable in the shotgun, then so be it. Then give him an offense, a layered offense that helps that out, that aids that. Right now, they're not giving him anything. The Eagles have one of the most talented offenses in the league, and they're not able to do anything with it. It's very vanilla, very bland, very very loser. Not Super Bowl, and that's where they're at right now. But there's a lot. There's going to be more time to dissect position by position, player by player as we move forward into the offseason, which is bearing down on them pretty quickly. But the question for me tonight is, why is Nick Sirianni getting all of this negative feedback, but there's such little coming towards Howie Roseman? Why? That is my question. I don't understand why they're not lockstep in this. Why the one is not under the same scrutiny as the other. How he built the roster, right? How he created the salary cap issues. How he drafted the players, right? Yes, Nick Sirianni is then tasked to go out there and coach those players and get the most he can out of them. And I get that. And he's failed. He's failed miserably. And he should be held accountable to that. But why isn't Howie Roseman being held accountable as well, along with Nick Sirianni in this case? Why are we so afraid to criticize him? And why are people on this network, on the Edge of Philly Sports, so afraid to criticize openly and frankly Howie Roseman? Why? I have my theory, and I shared it with you because they're going to come off like hypocrites, because the majority of the ones on this network defended Howie Roseman to the grave and forgave him and said he learned and he's one of the best executives in all pro football. Totally forgetting about all those little issues that surfaced right as Doug Peterson was getting fired. Totally forgetting about the drafting that this GM has not done well over the last few years. And everyone's going to throw at me Devontae Smith. Everyone's going to throw at me Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. Well, you know what? I can throw back a few other players too in that essence. Do you know what Howie did to appease you, Eagles fans? You know what he did? He didn't draft well at all. He drafted popular. Yeah, that's what he did. He went to the SEC and said, you know what? I'm going to Alabama. I'm going to Georgia. I'm going to those schools like that. I'm going to stay away from North Dakota State. I'm going to stay away from TCU. I'm going to draft those popular places where I know the football fan in the city of Philadelphia will give me a respect and props because I'm going at the SEC. Not necessarily picking the right player, but I'm going at the right school. And that's what he did. He fooled you with that too. He didn't pick necessarily the right player. He picked the right school. And that's what got a lot of people off his back and gave him more time. What has Jordan Davis done so far in his 2 years with the Philadelphia Eagles? He's been pretty quiet. Jalen Carter came out the gate like a bull in a china shop. I haven't really heard much from him lately either. That entire defensive line is under a lot of issues right now. They're about 31, 32 sacks off of last year's pace. What happened to Jalen Carter? What happened to Nolan Smith, who really hasn't broken into the starting lineup yet? More of a special teams kind of guy. What has happened to the Kobe Dean? Remember that one? Remember the Kobe Dean draft pick? Oh, how he is such a masterful. He's a maneuvering. He's a shaking and a grooving. The Kobe Dean is falling. Well, guess what? There was a reason why he was falling. And it was brought up during the draft. He's got injury issues. Guess what he's been consistently since he's been an Eagle? Injured. What happened to Derek Barnett? We released him earlier this season. He was a bust of a first-round draft pick. And with all the problems on the defensive line, why in the hell are you releasing him? I'm not saying he's a good player, but he was a body. I can go on and on. But why is Howie Roseman not suffering the same wrath that Nick Sirianni is? Why is Howie Roseman not suffering the same wrath as the offensive and defensive coordinators are? Why? Why, when we talk about firing Nick Sirianni, nobody talks about firing Howie Roseman? Like it's an off-topic subject. You can't mention it. You'll get arrested. You'll be taken to a Howie Roseman re-educational camp, and you know things will be done to you. Why is that? Do you still believe in Howie Roseman? Does anybody out there still believe in Howie Roseman? You know what you're not going to tell me? You're not going to tell me no, because you can't. You can't tell me no, because you've already fell on that sword, and there ain't no coming back from that. So as this thing begins to smolder and explode and blow up and leak oil and do all those things, you're going to sit there and you're going to know what the answer is. You're going to know what the fix is, but no one's going to want to talk about it, and no one's going to have the courage to say it out loud. But I do. To my dying breath, fire that fraud, Howie Roseman, have him take his coach with him too, and let's get this thing back together again. Let's fix this, because it's over. The season is over. There's no coming back from what's happened this season. Things are only going to get worse as we move forward. It needs to happen. Jeff Lurie, who for whatever reason won't fire Howie, and am I expecting him to get fired? No, of course I'm not. Then pressure Jeff Lurie. Pressure the owner of this team to get rid of that fraud and get rid of Nick Sirianni at the same time. Because until he does both, till both of them are gone, nothing is really ever going to change. Because Howie and Jeff are going to bring in a yes man. That's all they're going to do. And how much of a meddling owner is Jeff Lurie really? Is he just a quiet version of Jerry Jones? Does he meddle? I'm starting to think he does. Whose decision was it to fire or demote Sean Desai? If anybody believes it was Sirianni's decision, you're not listening or you're not paying attention. It wasn't. It wasn't Sirianni's decision. Of course it wasn't. It came from above. But how far above did it come from? Did it come from the owner box? Did it come from that fraud's office? Where did it come from? These are things that are not new to this organization. These have been here for years. We just stopped talking about it. We turned a blind eye to it because we didn't want to admit that we were that type of organization. So, and there you go. There's my Matty B wish list. My 2024 Matty B. If you're looking for a present for me, for a late Christmas present, early New Year's present, whatever you want to call it, that is my wish list right here. Give me Mike Tomlin. That's who I want, and Adam Stevens from the San Francisco 49ers. That's who I want running this team next year. Both those two individuals, because those are football people. Those are not yes men. Those are individuals that know how to build a football team, and those are individuals that know how to lead men. And right now, we need both. We need them both. We need them both. We need them both bad. And Adam Peters and Mike Tomlin would suit this team well. If there's any time in the history of this team that we need individuals like that, it is right now. So, as I said, I'm not going to get too much into the X's and O's of what happened, but I don't really need to go into that. Eagles lost 35-31, 11-5, currently the 5th seed in the NFL, in the NFC playoffs. This coming week, they'll battle the New York Giants in Week 18. Whether or not they're going to play their starters, whether or not there's anything to play for at all in this game, that to be determined. But it's all going to come down to Week 18, I guess, and then we're going to move into the playoffs and see where that takes us. But don't forget, that segment here on the show is brought to you by the good folks over at Philly Sports Trips. They got you covered for Philly spring training. They got 3 iterations heading down the Clearwater this spring. And then, of course, the next one is a trip coming out to MetLife on February 17th for the Stadium Series, February 17th, 2024. Flyers, Devils. Head over to phillysportstrips.com today and find out everything they have to offer, because they have another trip heading out to L.A., I think, for the Clippers in March. So, yeah, go ahead and check out Philly Sports Trips today. My next topic tonight is going to be about the Philadelphia Stars. Oh, boy. Man, the Philadelphia Stars. You know, the official announcement came out today from the UFL, which is the United Football League. It's the merger between the XFL and the USFL. It's complete. It's a done deal. It's going to be an 8-team league. Not 18, but an 8-team league. 4 from the USFL and 4 from the XFL are going to comprise to make this league. And the Philadelphia Stars are not one of the 4 from the USFL that are going to be merged over into the UFL, thus ending a tumultuous yet successful run in the USFL's history. In the 5 seasons that there was a USFL dating back to 1983, the Stars won 2 championships and were represented in the playoffs 4 out of the 5 seasons. I mean, I don't know if there's a more successful team out there than the Stars in the history of the USFL. I really don't. And yet they weren't selected to move over to the UFL. Perhaps maybe it was a market thing. They want smaller markets, markets that don't necessarily have pro like NFL football, because the New Jersey Generals were also not merged over. They were also disbanded. So, I don't know really the reason there. Maybe it's the Stars don't have a place to play. I don't think the Link was going to let them play there. But, the Philadelphia Stars are no more, and I'm going to miss it, man, because I really enjoyed it. I covered it for the EOP over the last 2 seasons. Last year they didn't make the playoffs. The only season they have ever not made the playoffs in the 5 years that they were in the league. The year before that, they were back in the championship game. They ended up losing to Birmingham, but it was a good run. It was a good run that first year that the league came back, and it was fun football. It was spring football. It got those juices flowing, right? It kind of took the doldrums off the offseason a little bit. But there will be spring football, the UFL, the United Football League. It'll start at the end of March, but the Philadelphia Stars, sadly, will not be part of it, as they were. The official announcement came down today that they were being, I guess their contract extension was not picked up, and they will end their tenure, at least for now. Maybe when they reboot the league the third time, they'll come back. But as of right now, the Stars are historical, no more. So it's upsetting. It makes me cry. All right, let's move on to the ice, because there's a couple of things going on out there, right? We got some Flyers hockey, right? On the post game last night, I mentioned I was going to talk about this, or was it on my show on Saturday? Very recently, I said I was going to talk about this, but I didn't. For those of you who are not noticing or do not know, the World Junior Championships, the best under 20 years old players in the world are currently going on in Gothenburg, Sweden right now. And it's an awesome tournament. It started on the day after Christmas, and it goes all the way through this weekend. And Team USA is entering into they won their group. They won Group B. Tomorrow they'll play Slovakia, I believe, or Slovakia or Latvia, one of those teams. They're going to play them in the quarterfinals of the WJC. And on the Flyers, or on Team USA, of course, Cutter Gauthier is a member of, and of course he is a Flyers prospect, a much highly touted Flyers prospect. Mike, what's up, man? Happy New Year to you too. I hope your New Year is finding you healthy. I know you've been dealing with some stuff, man, so I hope you're healthy. But Cutter Gauthier is one of the 3 Flyer prospects that are represented around the world during this tournament. And if you want to get the latest and greatest about the tournament, head over to EOP.com, go to our Flyers page, and you're going to see a buttload of articles written by yours truly, chronicalizing the Team USA's trip through the tournament up to this point. They are 3-0, or 4-0, sorry, as they get ready for quarterfinal play tomorrow, and a real legit shot at winning gold. Canada is not as strong as they were last year. Obviously, Connor Bednard is not there. Adam Logan is not there. And they got a decent team. Macklin Celebrini kind of highlights that group and for Team Canada. But Oliver Bonk as well is part of Team Canada right now. And he is a Flyers prospect. And the final Flyer prospect plays for Slovakia. His name is Alex Chernik. And he is a defenseman or a forward for the Slovaks. So 3 Flyers prospects represented in the WJC. Now, of course, no Matty Michkov, because Russia is not allowed to play in the tournament due to the geopolitical situation going on there in the USSR. I'm sorry, it's not that anymore. It's Russia. So no Michkov as he continues to play in the KHL. But, it's been great hockey. Now, for those of you who want an update on Cutter Gauthier, I will give it to you right now. He has played in all 4 games. He has 1 goal, 5 assists, and I think he's like a +4 or +5. Not the goal scoring machine that everybody thought he was going to be up to this point in the tournament. But it's not that hard for me to understand why he's not scoring goals. Have you ever watched the guy play? Listen, I think he's got he's a big kid. He's got a really quick shot, very fast hands, average to above average skater. But the problem what I see with his game, if you ever watch him during his Team USA time, he plays for Boston College. So go ahead on to ESPN Plus, pay your $5 a month, and you can watch Boston College games for the rest of the season. And you'll be able to see as much as Cutter Gauthier as you want to see him before he arrives, hopefully this spring in Philadelphia. But he's very much so a perimeter player. He's not a net guy. He is a perimeter guy. He's a shoot first, someone else get the rebound kind of guy. He's a facilitator more than a goal scorer. At least that's the game they have him playing, both with Boston College and with Team USA. Now, I don't know if that's what the game, if that's what the Flyers saw from him, and that's what appealed to the Flyers to Gauthier. I don't know, but that's not the type of player that I think we need. Now, are they going to get him here in Philadelphia, coach him up, make him more of a net kind of guy? Maybe. I hope, because right now he's got all the tools to be an outstanding net player. But right now, if you were to ask me who his comp is that I've seen, and again, he's very young in his development, but aside from being a net player, he reminds me a lot of JVR when he was a young player. Reminds me a lot of JVR. Now, JVR is not built the same way. Gauthier is a little bit more broader and bigger, but their game reminds me, they have very similar games, or they did when JVR was at that age. Now, JVR learned the net, and he went to the net, and he became a better player, and I think that's how he survived as long as he did in the NHL. And I don't think Gauthier, if he doesn't learn that part of the game, and if he doesn't adopt or accept that, he's not going to make it in the NHL, because he's going to have to be a net guy. He's built to be a net guy. He's in front of the net. He's a centerman, for God's sakes. And the Flyers probably drafted him. I know he plays the wing as well, but I think the Flyers drafted him to be a center. And I don't need a perimeter center. It's not 1998, all right? I need someone up front of the net. And right now I'm concerned, as I said, as a young NCAA junior player, I mean, obviously he's one of the top in the world, but is that going to translate at the next level? Because this spring, if all goes well, he should be signing his contract. This is to be his second year at Boston College. I don't see much of a reason why he goes back to BC for a third year. And if he does go back to BC in the third year, we got a problem here, because then he either has to sign by the end of the hockey season with the Flyers, or he goes back into the draft. So I don't understand. I don't really. It's going to be interesting to see how it works out with him. I don't think he is definitely. He's going to have to go to the AHL. I don't think he's going to be right to the NHL kind of a guy. They probably will bring him right to the NHL next spring to get him a rep or two, but then don't expect him to be much more than an AHL player heading into the early part of the season after this one, which would be 24-25. And then maybe at some point, once they coach him up a little bit and they see him with the competition, maybe you see him up there. But as I said, he dominates at this level. He's one of the best players on Team USA. A goal, 5 assists, and like a +4 so far for Gauthier. Oliver Bonk, I believe he's got like 3 goals and like 9 assists. Then he's like a +7. Really good looking player. Really a speedster. Got a lot of Morgan Frost going on there. We'll see how that translates. And Alex Chernick is a scrapper, man. He is a net guy, but he's a smaller kid. But he's a good player too. So 3 players right now are currently represented in the World Junior Championships in Gothenburg, Sweden, for the Flyers. So let's keep an eye on that. And if you haven't checked it out, man, I'm telling you, go check it out. It's on the NHL Network. And if you want to know how to get it other than the NHL Network, just hit me up on Twitter or something, and I'll let you know how to get it. So yeah. All right, let's move on now to the Flyers. Flyers are before we do that, let me just pay another bill. Before we talk about the Flyers, let's talk about some. Did I do this yet? No, I have not. Sherry's tickets, right? If you're looking for the great prices, no hidden fees, sports, concerts, and theater tickets, and looking no further than Sherry's tickets at www.sherrytickets.com. You're not going to find a better deal anywhere. I promise you that. You also save additional 10% when you enter the promo code EOP10. Head over to Sherry's Tickets Town now and see what they have to offer. There's a lot of going over there and seeing what they have to offer type of shit going on, right? It is what it is. My final topic of the night will be, of course, your Fly Guys. Flyers are in Western Canada right now. They are going to wrap up tomorrow night in Carter Hart's hometown, or he grew up right outside of Edmonton, but they're in Edmonton. Hart will get to start tomorrow in net, obviously, as he'll probably have a lot of his family and friends in the seats. The Flyers are looking to salvage this trip now, because last night, not a very good game on the Flyers. It had all the elements that this team has brought to the table this year. Really aggressive check, forward and back. blocking shots left and right, killing as many penalties as they can, but then also going 0 for 4 on the power play. And that's become a very negative trend. I talk about this every time I do the post game, and I'm going to bring it up here again. But currently, through 36 games right now, the Flyers are 19, 12, and 5. They are 12. Get this. They are 12 for 113 on the power play. 12 for 113. I mean, I don't even. Nope. If you would tell me there's a hockey team out there that's 12 for 113 on the power play, and you asked me what level of hockey do you think that team plays at, I would tell you some sort of like Division III, maybe high school varsity, maybe even like low minor hockey, like Class A, like Level A, that kind of thing. But to tell me that that's an NHL team, 12 for 113 on the power play, that's absolutely amazing. And that is the reason why there's still a rebuild here, because they're 12 for 113 on the power play. Because you don't just become 12 for 113. That's nothing that just happens, right? You're that way because that's who you are. You don't have the scores. You don't have the type of talent that's going to get you power play goals consistently. And if they were able to get a power play going, just a semblance of a power play going, this team would have at least 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 more wins. And we'd be talking a whole other thing right now. The Flyers would be back if they had a power play that worked. But until they do, a game like last night against Calgary, where they had every opportunity in the world to pull away, but could not do it because they just didn't have the horses in the barn, is the reason why they're still in a rebuild. They're a great story. They're a feisty, peppy team, and they're probably going to be in this thing right to the very end. And that's a good thing. But until we commit on getting a score, until we commit on making that move, because, yeah, there's some players coming up in the pipeline. There's some potential. I mentioned Gauthier. I also mentioned Michkov. There's some players out there that are going to develop into potential scorers for this team. But the Flyers, in my opinion, are in a position right now to look for a established scorer in the league. And I do go to the Johnny Gaudreau. We have 2 first-round draft picks this year. And we have 2 goalies right now that, we're playing pretty well. There's teams out there that need goaltending. There's teams out there that need first-round draft picks. There's teams out there that have Johnny Gaudreau playing for them that are god-awful, that could probably use as many first-round draft picks as they can get their hands on, Columbus Blue Jackets. Why not make a move and get me some Johnny Hockey? Get him here. So for once and for all, we can see if it really would have made a difference. But I'm telling you, we put Johnny Hockey on this team, you might have something here. You might have something here. You might have a legitimate something here. I'm not saying what that something is, but you might have a legitimate something here. You'd have a better than a 12 for 113 on the power play, I can tell you that much. Because when you have a situation like 12 for 113 on your power play, but then you look down a little further down the stat sheet, and you see that they've scored 9 shorthanded goals. So 10, 11. So they've scored 3 less shorthanded goals than they have power play goals. That's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. They've scored 3 less shorthanded goals than they have power play, or 3 less power play goals than they have shorthanded goals. Just absolutely amazing. But until you can flip that, and you can get a scorer in here to put the puck in the back of the net on the power play, and get that thing going in the right direction, then I don't know. We're going to be kind of stuck in neutral. But it's time. I think we've seen enough of some players. I think the coaches have seen enough of some players. I think there's definite decisions already been made about the majority of players on this team right now as far as what their future is. Why not go out and get me a Johnny Gaudreau or a Johnny Gaudreau-like player and see what he does? And, I'm not necessarily going to wait to the trade deadline to do it. Why not do it now? So we can kind of work into the system. We can figure things out. As I mentioned, we have 2 goaltenders that are playing pretty good right now. Eventually, one or both of them are going to stop playing pretty good. And we have 2 first-round draft picks this coming year. Why not? I'm just saying, you want to really be back? Until we can flip that 12 for 113 on the power play, we are what we are. But pretty good news story for the Flyers and overall, as I mentioned. They are just, the rebuild this season has been a thankful distraction to what's been happening with the football team. But they will continue their play, as I mentioned, tomorrow night in Edmonton as they wrap up the Western Canadian tour before heading home to play the Blue Jackets on Thursday. So then we got you covered here on the Edge Philly Sports with the Clear the Ice program. So make sure you're tuned in for that whenever it's on, baby. How far are Eagles making it in the playoffs? To the host city, and that's it. They're not even getting to the stadium. No, they are a one and done team in the playoffs. Matter of fact, it's a shame. It's a shame that they're going to take a playoff spot away from some other team that might deserve it more than the Eagles. And that's what this comes down to. So they are one and done. And it's a shame that they're going to take a playoff spot away from a deserving team. But that's what you have here. Don't forget, join us on the Clear the Ice program every Flyer post game as we get you caught up on the day's Flyers action and all the action around the NHL. Don't forget to check on the WJC, the World Junior Championships. Quarterfinals tomorrow. I want to say 5 o'clock tomorrow in the afternoon. USA versus Latvia. I want to say, it's Latvia or Slovakia, one of those two. As Team USA marches towards a potential gold medal showdown with, of course, Team Canada. Hopefully that's how it works out. Folks, listen, that's going to do it for me. I want to thank you guys for coming back. We're back at you in 2024. We're back at you live. This is the way it's going to be now. We got the year started off right. Don't forget, later in the week on Saturday, make sure you're coming back looking here for the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn, the standalone show that I do on Thursdays with him, or Saturdays. We tape it Thursdays and it airs on Saturdays. So I'm interested to see what Kyle has to say about his take on the Eagles right now. But the recap of what we talked about tonight, the venom that's being hurled at Nick Sirianni, which is extremely warranted and correct. Why isn't there equal venom going towards that fraud of a GM, Howie Roseman? And I think the reason that there isn't, because the majority of Eagle fans know they would be coming off as hypocritical fools if they criticized Howie because they backed him. They backed him, and now they feel used. They feel violated by Howie Roseman, and they don't want to go back on what they said. So all the criticism that should be going to Nick Sirianni should also be headed towards Howie Roseman equally. The USFL has announced its merger with the XFL, and the Philadelphia Stars are not part of that merger. It'll be the UFL, and the Stars will not be part of it. The Flyers are finishing up their Western Canadian trip, and as I mentioned, your Team USA is skating towards gold in Gothenburg, Sweden in the World Junior Championships. So until we talk again next week, or I should say later on this week when we do the Birds Blast, you guys have a great Philadelphia Sports Week. Enjoy your return to work. Happy New Year. And what do they say? Oh, that's right. That is the news, and I'm out of here.